Sheriff's deputies were forced to step in at Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport overnight when passengers became upset when Spirit Airlines canceled 9 flights. It appears thousands of the airline's customers are being impacted by a dispute between Spirit and its pilots. The pilots are saying they're working without a contract. Spirit Airlines says its pilots are engaged in an illegal slowdown and alleges some are engaged in a campaign to threaten and intimidate other pilots over flying assignments. The airline said this morning it is shocked and saddened to see the video from inside the Fort Lauderdale airport.
Some adoptions agencies in Alabama now have the power to turn away gay couples wanting to adopt a child. Alabama Governor Kay Ivey signed legislation May 3rd allowing private, faith-based adoption centers to refuse to place children with certain families based on religious objections. Such objections could include placing children with gay parents. The new Alabama Child Placing Agency Inclusion Act only applies to faith-based adoption groups and not agencies that receive state or federal funding. The bill was approved last month by the Republican-run Alabama Senate. Senators who opposed it expressed worries that the new rules would encourage discrimination. Alabama's House of Representatives passed the bill with a unanimous vote. Governor Ivey said she signed the bill, quote, because it ensures hundreds of children can continue to find forever homes through religiously affiliated adoption agencies. Alabama's state adoption policy specifies only that single adults or married couples can try to adopt. For United News International, I'm Kimberly Caldwell.
Shepard Smith, the chief breaking news anchor at Fox News, is finally opening up about being a gay man. While recently discussing the topic, the 53-year-old told students at his alma mater, the University of Mississippi, "I don't think about it. It's not a thing. I go to work. I manage a lot of people. I cover the news. I deal with holy hell around me. I go home to the man I'm in love with." Smith went on to add that it wasn't until 8 or 9 years ago that he started living his truth, explaining that he considered confronting his same-sex attraction but repressed the feelings.
On Tuesday, Reuters reports that 4 married lesbian couples expecting children have filed a lawsuit in Tennessee looking to overturn a new state law. The new law could deny rights to same-sex couples by requiring a strict adherence to terms such as husband. On Friday, Governor Bill Hulsum signed the law that requires for words in state statutes to be interpreted with natural and ordinary meaning. Tuesday's lawsuit says that the right to be recognized as a parent of a child of one's marriage is a right which deserves constitutional protection.
Research shows nearly 1 in 2 seniors in Ontario, Canada were prescribed antibiotics when they visited their doctor for common cold symptoms. A new study from the Institute for Clinical Evaluative Sciences Western in London, Ontario, and Lawson Health Research Institute has found that half of senior patients with non-bacterial infections, such as the common cold, were prescribed unnecessary antibiotics by their primary physician. Roughly 53% of patients had the common cold, 31% had acute bronchitis, 14% had acute sinusitis, and 2% had acute laryngitis.
Minnesota health officials are baffled as to why the state is experiencing its worst measles outbreak in 30 years. The individuals being affected by the measles are unvaccinated Somali American children. Health officials are starting to gather the outbreak occurred because the measles is very contagious and the Somali population in Minnesota has not been very well informed on how to be properly vaccinated. Health officials are still in the process of trying to get everything under control.
The Chinese government is cracking down on fake pollution information. The Beijing Municipal Environmental Protection Bureau announced May 5th a zero-tolerance policy on the falsification of environmental figures. Residents in the capital city have been lodging complaints online recently over the reported manipulation of air quality readings. Mist cannons are at the center of the controversy. The cannons work by spraying nebulized water droplets into the air. The droplets trap dust particles and cause them to fall to the ground. Beijing residents, however, say the cannons are being used around the capital's air quality monitoring stations to generate better readings. The Chinese government has vowed to investigate the claims. China continues to struggle to clean up its air. Industrial smog combined with a sandstorm earlier this month pushed Beijing's pollution levels off the charts. For United News International, I'm Neela Uni.
icebergs floating in the Arabian Sea. A company in the United Arab Emirates wants to make the concept a reality. On May 2nd, Abdullah Al-Shehi, managing director of National Advisor Bureau Limited, told Gulf News his company plans to tow an iceberg from Antarctica to the Fujairah coast of the UAE. Al-Shehi said an average iceberg contains more than 20 billion gallons of the purest drinking water in the world. Not only would the iceberg provide fresh water, but it could also draw tourists. Al-Shehi also said the ice could create a microclimate that would bring rain to the arid region. The company said it will take as long as 1 year to tow the iceberg to the Arabian coast, but a majority of the ice will still be frozen after the trip. Al-Shehi said his company has already run the project through simulators and plans to get started in 2018. For United News International, I'm Kimberly Caldwell.
According to the city district attorney's office on Tuesday, the Amtrak engineer involved in a derailment that killed 8 people and injured 200 others near Philadelphia won't face criminal charges. Prosecutors said in a statement that they were unable to prove that engineer Brandon Bastian acted irresponsibly when he accelerated the train to 106 miles per hour on a 50-mile-per-hour curve, which was determined to be the cause of the crash. Federal investigators have reportedly concluded that Bastian lost track of his location before the crash on May 12, 2015. They also found no evidence that he was under the influence of drugs or alcohol or even distracted by a phone.
Canada's federal government has been deploying troops to flooded areas in Quebec for 3 days now, with more to come. They're supporting local efforts to build sandbag barriers and help residents forced to flee.
Very stressing, very bad, but it's the nature. We have no choice.
More than 1,500 homes have already been evacuated. 2 people, a 37-year-old man, a 2-year-old child, are missing after their car was swept away. As the relief effort intensifies, some areas are facing mandatory evacuation orders.
We understand that your house is your most prized possession, but at the same time, the message is your life is the most prized possession.
Heavy spring rains and melting snow caused these floods across eastern Canada, and most rivers have yet to crest. Many in the hardest hit areas in Quebec say the authorities should have been more prepared for what's being described as the worst flooding in decades.
We don't have enough help. I don't know where the army is, so I don't know what else to say. It's a disaster.
In the mountains of British Columbia in western Canada, the rain and rising waters have triggered landslides. There's also heavy flooding in lakefront and riverside neighborhoods. 2 men are missing, including a local fire chief who was swept away while checking water levels along a local river. The heavy rains of the past 5 days are easing, giving rescuers a chance to reach remote areas. It's also a chance for the authorities to begin planning a cleanup operation that will likely take many months. Daniel Lack, Al Jazeera.
On Tuesday, a transgender soldier issued her first statement since former President Barack Obama reduced her 35-year prison sentence for leaking intelligence. Chelsea Manning has served nearly 7 years in a military prison after being convicted of leaking more than 700,000 classified documents to anti-secrecy group WikiLeaks in 2010. In a statement released by the American Civil Liberties Union, Manning said, "For the first time I can see a future for myself as Chelsea. I can imagine surviving and living as the person who I am and can finally be in the outside world." She continued to say that she wants to help others after she is released from prison next week.
Lightning strikes killed at least 16 people in Bangladesh in a single day. The storms on May 9th injured multiple others as well. The Dhaka Tribune says the killed and injured spanned across 9 districts in Bangladesh and that they were all working outside when they were hit. Rural areas in Bangladesh have been heavily deforested over the years to make room for rice fields. One side effect is that there aren't many trees left to protect people from lightning strikes. News source AFP reports more than 200 Bangladeshis were killed by lightning in 2016. So the country is working on a new initiative to plant 1 million palm trees by June. The hope is that the trees will absorb the impact of the lightning, saving people on the ground below. The new palm trees will take years to grow, though. For United News International, I'm Neela Uni.
People are crowded into the streets around Caracas's Plaza Jose Marti. Smoke billows through the air and tear gas canisters hit the pavement. It has become a familiar scene where protesters have been demonstrating for weeks against a government they believe is slowly becoming a dictatorship. The sound of violin pierces the air. A young man braces the instrument under his chin and confidently draws a bow over its strings. The unidentified young man is surrounded by protesters. One holds up a makeshift shield to protect him. Some protesters nearby throw Molotov cocktails at government forces. The musician doesn't seem to hear the chaos around him, just the music he creates.
Researchers discovered 3 pre-human skeletons in a South African cave. The skeletons revealed that little hominids may have lived more like humans than once thought. Their official scientific name is Homo naledi. Their brains are 3 times smaller than a human's brain, and they have the same backbones and hands as humans. The biggest discovery paleontologists made finding these new pre-human skeletons is that the Homo naledi had specific places where they buried their dead.
Norway plans to kill more than 2,000 reindeer in an attempt to eradicate a deadly disease. On May 8th, Norway's Agriculture Ministry authorized the mass slaughter of a herd living in the southwestern mountain region of Nordfjella. The decision comes after 3 cases of chronic wasting disease were detected among the herd last year. 2 other cases were found in moose, but the AFP news agency said experts are less concerned about those since moose live alone. The Norwegian Food Safety Authority requested the reindeer slaughter, and the Agriculture Ministry granted its permission. The ministry wants the cull completed by May 1st, 2018. The Food Safety Authority must come up with a plan of action by mid-June. Chronic wasting disease can be passed among members of the deer family, but it isn't known to affect humans. The condition targets an animal's brain, leading to loss of bodily functions and death. For United News International, I'm Camry Caldwell.
Pernicious is the fact that
former U.S. President Barack Obama said Tuesday that he believes the country will continue to make progress on combating climate change, even under Trump's presidency. Before taking office, President Donald Trump pledged to cancel the 2015 Paris Treaty signed by nearly 200 countries, which aims to phase out the use of fossil fuels. Trump, who wants to boost the U.S. coal industry, is expected to announce in the next few days if he will back out of the deal. Obama recently said, "Because of current debate in Washington, it could be that policies move more slowly, but I am confident that the United States will continue to move in the right direction."
Water levels have begun to recede in eastern Canada, where historic flooding has left at least 1 man dead. But Quebec Public Safety Minister Martin Coitu cautions, quote, "We have to be patient." On Tuesday, May 9th, Coitu said that while conditions are beginning to improve, water levels aren't expected to be back to normal until the end of the month. A combination of heavy rain and melting snow has inundated parts of Quebec, where at least 10 municipalities have declared states of emergency. Thousands of residents have fled to safety, both voluntarily and in response to mandatory evacuation orders. The flooding has claimed the life of 37-year-old Mike Gagnon, whose car was swept away by rising waters. A 2-year-old girl who was in that car is still missing. The federal government has been providing assistance since Friday. The Canadian Armed Forces has deployed about 1,700 troops to assist in flooded areas. For United News International, I'm Matt Paul.
According to researchers in the US, nearly 1 in 3 drugs that are approved by the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, pass despite looming concerns over the safety of the product. In a press release, Dr. Nicholas Downing, a physician at the Department of Medicine at Brigham and Women's, said, "The fact that so many new safety risks are being identified after FDA approval indicates that the FDA is taking its responsibility of ensuring the safety of new drugs throughout their lifetime seriously." The study conducted at Brigham and Women's Hospital took place between 2001 and 2010 and found that nearly 1 in 3 drugs approved by the FDA had a post-market safety event.
Russia shows off its military might during a Victory Day parade in Moscow. Victory Day, commemorating the defeat of Nazi Germany in World War II, is celebrated May 9th in Russia. Russian President Vladimir Putin looked on as thousands of soldiers marched in formation and over 100 pieces of heavy equipment rolled through Red Square. For the first time, Russia also showed off new Arctic defense systems, which stood out because of white camouflage paint. Skies were cloudy and gray, however, forcing the cancellation of an aerial display. In his speech, Putin said, quote, "Lessons of the past war remind us to be vigilant." He added that Russia's military would be able to counter any potential aggression in the future. While the Moscow parade was Russia's largest, smaller events were held across the country, including in recently annexed Crimea. This year marks the 72nd anniversary of the end of World War II. For United News International, I'm Matt Paul.
Picture in your mind an image of a deer. You might be imagining a cute, shy animal similar to Bambi. Well, what you're about to see is going to ruin that image. For the first time, a deer has been caught on camera chewing on human remains. It happened at the Forensic Anthropology Research Facility in San Marcos, Texas. Scientists used the so-called body farm to study how human bodies decompose. The body in these pictures was purposely left out for wild animals to scavenge, but scientists weren't expecting a deer to take advantage of the free snack. In a report published in the Journal of Forensic Sciences, researchers say the deer is holding a rib bone in its mouth, quote, like a cigar. Now, deer are known to chew on dry bones to get certain minerals. This is just the first time one has been seen gnawing on human remains. It's a bit unsettling. For United News International, I'm Camberry Caldwell.
The NSA says France's election is the latest victim of Russian hacking. According to CNET, National Security Agency Director Admiral Mike Rogers revealed on Tuesday that the U.S. was monitoring Russian activity and witnessed an attack on France's election infrastructure. 2 days before France's election, hackers leaked hordes of emails from candidate Emmanuel Macron's campaign in a last-minute attempt to sway voters. The tactic failed and Macron was successfully elected to the French presidency. With more elections on the way in Europe, the potential threat isn't over yet. Rogers says the U.S. is offering assistance to German and British governments to prevent future hacking attacks.
In a remote area of Washington state, a portion of an underground tunnel collapsed while containing rail cars filled with radioactive waste. The collapse caused an immediate evacuation for some works at the site that made plutonium for nuclear weapons for decades. According to a spokesman for the Washington State Department of Ecology, no workers were injured and there has been no detection of radiation at the Hanford Nuclear Reservation. Officials say no workers were inside the tunnel when it collapsed.
Researchers at Arizona State University have plans to stop Arctic ice melting by using wind-powered water pumps. They are going to be placed at the northernmost reaches of the Earth. These devices are going to be used to suck up cold seawater, and then they are going to spread it on the ice over the entire Arctic winter. The purpose of these pumps is to slow the melting of pre-existing ice and promote the creation of new ice. They said that in order to help rebuild 10% of the Arctic, they would need 10 million pumps. Overall, it would cost them $50 billion a year. Still, the scientists are very hopeful and believe it to be worth the cost and effort.
The 2017 MTV Movie and TV Awards were highlighted by equality. For the first time, the show gave a gender-neutral prize for Best Actor in Movies and Television. The winner for Best Actor in a Movie was Emma Watson for her role as Belle in Disney's live-action adaptation of Beauty and the Beast. Watson praised the gender-neutral award during her speech.
That acting is about the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And that doesn't need to be separated into two different categories.
From the TV side, British actress Millie Bobby Brown won for Best Actor in a Television Show for her role as Eleven on Netflix Stranger Things. Other notable winners included Moonlight's Ashton Sanders and Jarell Ramon for Best Kiss. For United News International, I'm Rachel Latham.